got a seat that allows your spine to be good and long, check in with your breath. Notice your breath. Notice the quality of your breath, if it's easy, if it's deep and relaxed, if it's slow and steady, if it's a little too, a little faster than you want, and you can just let it just settle now that you're here, no longer trying to get here. And allow your intention to go inward as we set an intention together. I like to bring my hands together in front of my heart space. And for myself, I'm going to offer this intention that you can either take or leave as you desire. I'm going to open myself more to letting go. With this autumn season, when the leaves are really releasing from the trees here in the Northeast, modeling for me what I need to be doing more of in my own life and in my own psyche. Letting go, being at peace, or at least opening to letting go. Allowing the breath to facilitate that inside of us, or whatever intention works for you. You may want to dedicate your practice for the next hour to someone else, or you might want to store the energy for yourself. Much like the animals around us are storing their little acorns and other seeds and nuts for the season ahead. Do what feels right for you. And throughout the class, if there's ever a pose that I offer that just doesn't seem to resonate with your body, you can always find a seated pose or a mountain standing pose or child's pose, which I'll be demonstrating in a short while. So let's begin by opening the arms a bit and the wrists, extending our hands in front of us, engaging the arms into the shoulder girdle, and then gently bringing the fingers of the right hand, bending them back a bit toward the shoulder, getting a nice stretch in the wrist and in the forearm, just gently pressing that back, releasing, doing the same on the other side. Just draw the fingers back toward your shoulders as you breathe in and out. This helps to contradict any kind of carpal tunnel. And we'll do that again on either side. You can also lift the hands overhead, entwining the fingers, and bring the hands down that way. The fingers down rather that way, toward the head. And then let the arms open up. Let the shoulders drop down the spine and broaden behind you. And then roll your arms down, cascade your arms down. And we'll just do some gentle shoulder rolls, lifting up the shoulders toward the ears, dropping them back and down, exhaling as we go, inhaling the shoulders forward and up, and then exhaling them back and down. And slowly just working the shoulders in a circle in a gentle way to release any tension that you might have there. Another couple more of these at a nice slow pace, engaging with your breath the whole time. And then we'll reverse the direction of the circles, bringing the shoulders back and then up toward the ears and forward, down, back and up. Inhaling, exhaling, forward, down. And continue a couple more circles of bringing those shoulders bringing more blood flow to your shoulders, feeling them getting warmer. And then bring them to stillness and let your hands just come to the tops of your legs in whichever seated pose you've taken. I'm going to switch back into Varasana. And if you have a belt or a strap, you might like to have that handy. You can use even a scarf. It doesn't have to be a yoga strap. It could be a belt from a robe or a seasonal scarf, or it could be an actual belt that you would wear around your waist. You don't need to have it, but it might come in handy for when we do Gomokasana Arms in a moment. So I'm going to sit myself back in Varasana. My knees are together. My feet are on either side of my buttocks and behind me. And I've got a nice stretch on the top of my ankles. My toes are pointing straight back. I'm going to first just massage the bottoms of my feet, the soles of my feet, pressing my thumbs into the heels and pressing them into the meat of the feet, down toward the toes, the ball of the feet, and just let your feet settle there. Give them a little love and support since they do so much for us and often don't really get much acknowledgement. And then we'll bring the hands together and entwine the fingers. Press the hands away from the heart, from the chest, keeping the chest broad and lifted. Keep length in the side trunk and raise the hands up toward the ceiling, trying to straighten the elbows if you can toward your ears, getting as much length in your side trunk as you can here. Bringing your belly button toward your spine. Engaging your abs just a bit. Engaging your breath fully. Trying to draw the rib cage toward your spine. Just a little bit here so you're not jutting your ribs out. And then let your arms fold down, cascading back down to your lap. And we'll do that again. And this time we're going to take a twist. So we're going to press the hands away, straighten the arms, keep length in your trunk as you reach up with your hands. You can even gaze toward the ceiling, get a little mild back bend in the upper spine here. Then lower your eyes to eye level. So your spine is now neutral. Keeping your buttocks planted evenly from right to left to right. Twist from the base of the spine to the right, and then the mid-spine, inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling, finding length, exhaling, finding rotation, and allow your arms to come down. Right hand behind your back, left hand to your right thigh. Inhaling and getting length. Exhaling, revolving a bit more to the right. And the last thing to turn right are your eyes and your neck. Noticing your breath, keeping your breath steady and sweet and smooth. This should feel really nice and opening in your spine. If anything feels constricted, just back off and make it less intense. And then gently, slowly bring yourself back to neutral, facing forward again. We'll bring the hands together once again, stretch them in front, raise them up. Inhale, find length. Exhale, begin to twist. Inhale, find length. Exhale, continue to twist from the lower spine to the mid spine to the upper spine. And then let the arms cascade down. Right hand finds your left leg. Left hand comes behind you to your support or the mat underneath you. Each inhalation lengthening, each exhalation revolving, letting your neck and your eyes be the last to turn left. And then gently bringing yourself back to neutral, back facing forward. And we'll get those belts now for Gomokasana Arms. Or if you choose not to use one, I usually don't use one, but I'm going to demo with it just in case it's helpful for anyone who's new to the pose. So Gomokasana Arms, the whole object is to open the shoulders more. So we begin with raising the arms up, and then we'll bend the right elbow, get those fingers coming toward the back body. I'm going to turn sideways at an angle so you can see better what I'm doing back there. So I've got this elbow pointing up, hand is coming down toward the middle of between my shoulders. My left arm's going to go out, thumb down, and then I'm going to circle that arm around my torso to my right side trunk, palm out. And that may be as far as you want to go today. That might be enough to open your shoulders, lifting that top elbow, and just getting this opening in the shoulder. If you'd like to go for the full pose, having the belt there might help you. You can get a hold of the belt here, pulling the elbows apart. Or if you're able to reach your fingers, you can get a hold of your fingers and gently draw the elbows away from each other. Breathing into any tight areas. Avoid, if anything does feel pinchy in a way that's not like a good stretch, just release and back off. Certainly let your neck be soft, resting your head on your forearm. No need to involve the neck here. And then we can gently release the belt or the fingers and slowly unwind the arms. And then we'll do the same with the other side. I'll turn around to face you again. It's a little awkward to have my back to you. Arms begin up. Left elbow bends now. Bring that elbow up toward the ceiling. Let the right arm come out at shoulder height. Thumb down. Circle that arm behind you. Maybe stop here and just enjoy this opening of the shoulder. Or let the hand come up, the right hand come up toward the left. If you're using the belt, you'll want the belt on the left side. If you don't have a belt, you can use your shirt and just find fabric there to tug on. Sometimes people like to use whatever they're wearing instead of using a belt. Drawing the rib cage toward your spine to promote more length in your spine and not jutting the ribs away from you. Again, supporting the neck and the head on the forearm. Finding a sweet, steady breath here for Gomokasana Arms. And then you can release your hands, unwind your arms, and come back to your seated pose. I think we're going to get ready to stand up now. Yes. We did our twist. Actually, let's go into table pose before we stand and warm up the spine a bit more with some cat and cow. So we can put the belt aside. We're going to come to tabletop position, having the knees right underneath your hips, about hip width apart, your hands directly under your shoulders. And you're going to press. When you are resting on your hands like this, you want to try to be on the fleshy part of your palms, not so much on your wrists. So pressing your shins into the floor here so you're not putting all the pressure on your knees. You're going to inhale the head and the buttocks up for cow. letting the chest lift as the tailbone lifts. And then exhale, dropping the head, dropping the tailbone, hollowing out the belly. Getting a Halloween cat arch here in the spine. Inhaling for cow, filling the belly. Exhaling, releasing, hollowing the belly. Inhaling again, and then do about 4 more of these at your own pace with your breath. Inhaling for cow, exhaling for cat. Anytime during the day, if you're feeling a little fatigue, taking cat and cow for a few moments can really help revive you. These mild back bends are a bit energizing to the body, and the forward bends are calming and cooling to the body. And with this gentle sequence here, you're getting a bit of both. Now, once you've finished your 4 cycles of that, come back to table. And we'll bring the forearms down. Just bringing the forearms down and clasping the hands like we did at the beginning of the class when we had the arms raised. You have your fingers clasped together and you're resting on your forearms and your shins. We're going to curl the toes under and we're going to just lift the hips up with soft knees. So your knees stay bent slightly. And you'll lift your hips up, pressing your forearms, letting your head come toward the mat, letting the shoulders roll onto your back, and then try to straighten your legs by bringing the thighs to the space behind you, pressing your thighs toward the wall behind you, and just see if you can straighten as your heels drop toward the floor. They don't reach the floor because your hips keep going up high. And your forearms support you. And you've got dolphin pose here, a short dolphin pose. Breathing in and out, feel the extension in your spine. If you want, you can bring your feet back further, wiggling them back further. And then we'll just allow the knees to come to the mat at mat width. So bringing the knees wide on the mat and bring the big toes of your feet toward each other together. Let the hands extend forward on the mat, on the fingertips as your head drops to the mat, resting on your third eye, between your eyes, between your eyebrows. Let your buttocks settle back onto your heels for extended child's pose. A wonderfully restorative pose that you can take at any time during the class that you just feel like, oh, this is more than I signed up for today. I think I just want to rest. This is a great resting pose. Allowing your spine to be long here, allowing your tailbone to reach toward your heels. As your fingertips extend in front of you, or you can just let your arms rest without your fingertips doing anything. If for any reason your arms don't feel good when they're in this position, you can also bring your arms to just face away from your head so their fingers are pointing toward your feet and resting on the floor in just regular child's pose. And allow your breath to support you here. Okay, we'll come back up to tabletop when you're ready, table pose. And just want to show those of you who know about downward dog, we're going to do downward dog next. For those of you who may like what we just did better, because you might have done downward dog and found it hard on your wrists, you can just do dolphin again. It's up to you what you'd like to do. With downward dog, again, we're pressing into the fleshy part of the palms. We're going to have those toes curled very much like we did for dolphin. We're going to lift the knees up rather, and the hips up. And this time we're pressing into the palms. We're pressing into the balls of the feet. We're raising the hips high. We're letting the head drop between the elbows as the arms straighten. The shoulders roll toward the base of the spine. And we straighten the legs by bringing the thighs toward the wall behind us, driving the heels toward the floor without actually touching the floor. Getting full extension in the spine here. Great stretch in the legs. If you have tight hamstrings, this might be challenging to do. You can always keep your knees slightly bent if they need to be. You could also walk the dog by bending one knee at a time and then the other, and that will allow you to bring one of your heels down closer to the floor at a time, and just kind of get a different type of stretch in your legs. And then if you'd like, you can go for upward dog. We're going to go into plank first, hovering right over the mat with a straight back. And then continuing forward, bringing the chest through the arms, flipping the feet down. Breathing here as we lift the chest, or you can drop the knees and the legs if that's better. Then roll the toes back under and take a downward dog again. And we'll step the feet gently forward toward the hands. Allow the hands to come toward the feet. And we'll just hang here in Utkatasana, full forward bend. Your hands might come to your shins, they might come to your ankles, your toes, or the floor. Just let yourself release your neck and your head. Then bring your hands to the tops of your thighs and bring your head about 90 degrees up, facing at eye level for Ardha Uttanasana. Or maybe your hands would be preferable at your shins, depending on your height. And then go ahead and jackknife yourself back up to a standing position into Tadasana, mountain pose. So for Tadasana, we just want to be with our alignment, having our arms and legs straight but not stiff, having our knees right over our ankles and our hips right over our knees, and our shoulders right over our hips. Being with our breath, noticing the energy flow of the body, the front of the body wants to rise from the earth energetically. The back of the body, the back of the head, the shoulders, the buttocks flows down to the earth. So connect with the energy of the front body lifting, the back body dropping. Letting the feet stay really grounded here. Notice if your balance feels even or if you tend to be putting more weight in one leg than the other. See if you can make that more even, more equal, unless there's a reason for you to have some structural reason why that's not possible for you today. Notice where your hips are, if they're in alignment with each other, and your shoulders, if they're in alignment with each other. Then step toward support, either a wall or a chair or a piece of furniture. And we'll do a few balance poses. We'll do tree pose, Rakshasana, And this, you can take it to whatever extent is comfortable for you and possible for you today. So we begin in Tadasana with both legs firmly planted here and supporting you. And then we'll fill the left leg, or whichever leg is closer to your support. Doesn't have to be the left leg. You can switch it if that's where you're at. The other opposite leg will come out at 90 degrees and just bring yourself to the tippy toes of that foot. So the knee is facing away from the standing leg and it's slightly bent away from what we'll call the tree leg. The not moving leg is your tree. And you can just keep your heel up against your ankle. Or if this feels really simple and easy to do, you might want to raise that foot toward your calf, keeping the knee out. Find a focal point you can gaze at that's not moving. Drawing the hips toward each other here. And then if you'd like, you can bring that foot higher and up toward in the inner thigh, pressing the thigh into the foot and the foot into the thigh. Just don't press it into the knee, whatever you do. And you can find a point for a position for your hands to support you, trying to keep the hips level. And then you can come out of it, shake it out, and either turn around, depending on the way your room is set up for your support, or move your support if you'd like to the opposite side. And we'll do the other side. So first find your Tadasana. And then fill that opposite leg that was moving before, make that one your tree. Let that leg be rooted. And turn the opposite knee out, resting on your tippy toes at first, finding a focal point to keep your balance, and then bringing that foot higher if you're comfortable doing so, to whichever height is doable for you. And also make sure, if you need the support, that you use it. It's great to practice balance poses, particularly as we approach the winter. Notice your breath. And whenever you need to come out, just come back to Tadasana, shake out your legs. And I'd like us to do a little bracket at the wall or at a chair. So if you have a chair, it can be as simple as using the seat of the chair or the arms of the chair. If you have a wall, it would be stepping about 3 feet away from the wall, lifting the arms, and then pressing the hands into the wall or the door at shoulder height, and letting the feet come directly under the hips at hip width apart, and getting a nice extension in the spine as we gaze toward, excuse me, toward the hands, the lower part of the hands for bracket. And just pushing into that support, whether it be the chair or the wall, flattening the spine, lifting the chest, rolling the shoulders toward the hips. I'm going to move my chair because I realize now that it's in my way, but you can keep pressing into either the chair or the wall. Then we're going to just lift the left leg at hip height, pressing the heel away, Finding strength in the standing leg. Try to level the hips out so the raised hip is not any higher than the standing hip. The chest is open and lifting and expanding with your breath. And then lower that leg. Find that even bracket pose again. And then gazing forward, we'll bring the right leg up. Press that heel away. Charge that leg at hip height. No higher than the other hip that's standing. And then lower that leg. Press away from your support back to Tadasana. And we'll take Utkatasana, powerful pose. So we'll bring the arms up. We'll settle the shoulders back and down. And now we'll just bend the knees. Let the buttocks come back toward the space behind you as though there's a chair there. Let the arms hover near your ears. And let your heart lift as your shoulders drop. Feel this in your thighs. Feel this in your core. Draw your belly button toward your spine here, engaging your abs. Letting the legs support this pose. You should not be straining your back at all. And then you can come back up. Urdhva Hastasana, arms raised, and then let your arms circle. Reverse swan dive down. Back to Tadasana. So in your Tadasana, you can learn a lot by just checking in with your breath after you do some of these standing or seated poses. When you find your Tadasana, your body's telling you often, how did that feel? It's telling you whether or not your breath is still relaxed. It's telling you whether there's any part of your body that's waking up after being asleep for a while, maybe a new kind of muscle sensation. So when you go into your Tadasana between poses, it's often a really great way to check in on what's going on inside. It's a good idea to take your time and do that practice of checking in with your Tadasana between standing poses, especially standing poses. So we're going to go for triangle, Utita Trikonasana. If you have blocks, they can be handy, but they're not necessary. If you do have a block or two, I would suggest getting it and putting it toward the back of your mat so that when you're standing on your mat facing the long edge, you're just about in the center of your mat, and you lift your arms. The blocks are just about under where your hands would be. Not that critical. You can always adjust the block position. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a wide-legged stance. So a wide-legged Tadasana. Feet are parallel to begin with, parallel to each other. Wide outside edge of your feet parallel to each other. And heart lifts, chest lifts, shoulders roll back and down. You'll hear me say that over and over and over again. So it's a very fundamental principle of asana practice. And then the arms can come up at shoulder height. So we have straight arms and straight legs. And we'll bring the back foot in about 20 degrees. And we'll pivot the right leg out at 90 degrees. And check that front heel of the front foot, the 90-degree foot, is in line with the back arch, the back foot arch. So they want a nice long stance, but short enough that you have balance and you feel supported with your legs. Both legs will be straight here. Both arms are straight. Breathing in, exhaling out, rolling the shoulders down, and then extend over that 90-degree leg. Extend, extend, extend the torso over that straight 90-degree leg as far as it'll go, and then let that hand drop. It can come to your shin if you don't have a block. If you have a block, have it come to the block directly under your shoulder. Let the other hand open, palm up, and raise that arm up. Raise it so it's right above the bottom arm. Draw your hips toward each other energetically. Legs stay straight, arms are straight, chest is opening up toward the ceiling as you gaze up toward the raised up hand. Keep strength in that back leg so not all your weight is in that front leg. And whenever you need to come out, you'll just use the strength of both legs. We'll all do this now. We'll come on up. Use the strength of both legs to come up. Turn the feet back to parallel. Let the arms come down. Step back into Tadasana. And check in again. How is your breath? And then we'll bring the hands in front of the heart center and either jump or step our feet widely apart again. Check that they're parallel. And we'll bring the opposite back foot in 20 degrees and the opposite leg will pivot out at 90. Check the heel arch alignment of the legs. My hips are still facing over the wide edge of the mat. Arms are extended at shoulder height. Shoulders are rolling down. Chest is lifting. Now I'm going to move over the 90-degree leg again, extending laterally all the way as far as I can. And then letting that left leg find my shin or the block. It's beginning to revolve my chest as I bring the back arm up. Bring that back arm up above the bottom arm. Raise my eyes toward that raised hand above me. Expanding and opening my chest more. Letting the shoulders keep moving down my spine as both legs straighten and support me. Utita, Trikonasana Triangle. Notice your breath. Draw your hips toward each other. And then use the strength of your legs to come on up. And turn your feet parallel. Before we step back to Tadasana, let's circle the hands behind us. Find our index fingers, point the index fingers away. Lift the heart up. We're feeling this in the shoulders. We've got a nice little opening in the shoulders. The chest is lifting here. The fingers are pulling away from the chest toward the earth. And now keeping the feet really grounded here. Legs are straight as we fold the front body over. First at 90 degrees, letting the hands raise behind us, and then dropping the head and letting the hands come toward the sky. Index finger pointing above, head dropping down below. And noticing your breath here. And then using the strength of the legs, come on back up. And you can jump or step your feet together back to Tadasana. So I know the last time I offered this class, I focused on how asana practice is preparation for meditation. And we discussed a little bit about the different limbs of yoga and how asana practice is just one form of the 8 limbs. And it's really a wonderful preparatory way to get ready for meditation and breath pranayama, breath practice, and all the other aspects of yoga. So as we continue to work on the physical forms, the asanas, we can just tune in a little more to the breath and what the breath is, how it's engaging us, how we're engaging with our spirit as we do these practices. That last pose I just led us through, the 5-pointed star that we folded in half and bent over, I find that one just like really energizing for my spirit. And it's funny how different poses will resonate differently with different people. So it just made me remember to share with you that, because I didn't say it at the beginning of class this time, but these asanas are just one type of yoga, and we're going to touch on another type before we wrap up, as I share the slides with you in a little while. But I just wanted to tune us in to what's going on that level as we move through the physical poses. So with this next one, Virabhadrasana 2 or Warrior 2, we begin in Tadasana, and then we can step or jump our feet apart. And it's a very similar setup to what we did for triangle. We're going to turn the back leg in at 20 degrees. We're going to pivot the right leg out, the opposite leg out at 90. We're going to check that the front 90-degree heel is in line with the arch of the back foot. It's going to be a fairly wide stance here between the two legs. I'm going to straighten the legs as best we can as our torso faces the wide edge of the mat. Arms will come up at shoulder height, just like we did a moment ago for triangle. And this time we're going to bend that front knee. And as we bend it, we're going to charge that back leg so we don't lose everything to this front leg. We have even support in both legs. And the arms come up again at shoulder height, and you feel that back leg really supporting you here. And that front knee is bent as close to 90 as you can get it. And your torso staying in Tadasana. It's not moving over the 90-degree leg. It's in Tadasana. And then lastly, you can gaze your eyes, turning your head toward that 90-degree leg to gaze over the hand, the middle finger of that hand. Both arms are straight and engaged and reaching away, but they're still integrated into your shoulders. And then you'll straighten that leg, bring your feet to parallel, and step or jump your feet together back to Tadasana. Again, notice from side to side what's going on. Hands can come in front of the chest. Step or jump your feet apart. This time the opposite toes will come in at 20 and the opposite leg will pivot out at 90. Preparing to do the same thing we just did on the other side, keeping the hips facing the wide edge of the long edge of the mat, keeping the arms out at shoulder height. Both legs are strongly supporting you. We bend that front leg at 90 and keep support in the back leg. Press that heel of the back leg into the earth. Keep the torso in Tadasana. It might want to move toward that 90-degree leg. It's a tendency for the body to want to do that. So try and keep it in Tadasana. And then the last thing to turn is your head and your eyes gazing over your outstretched hand. Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. And then you can turn that foot, straighten that leg, turn that foot back to parallel, both feet to parallel, and step or jump your feet together for Tadasana. We're coming toward the end of the asana portion of the class. We are going to do a couple more. I'd like us to, if we have a support of a wall, that would be ideal. But you can also use a chair or a piece of furniture like I have here. So since I don't know what you all have, I'm going to modify. I use the closet usually, but I'm going to go ahead and modify and use this piece of furniture. And you don't have to obviously use any props if you don't have one handy. You can simply modify this without having a support behind you. I'm just getting my legs off the floor. I'm getting myself onto my shoulders. The benefit of the wall is that you can press yourself into it and let it support your legs. I'm just going to let my feet flex. Imagine that I have a sandbag on my feet and letting my legs literally settle into my hips. And I'm rolling my shoulders under. My arms are on the floor with my palms up. The blood is now circulating into my abdominal area and my heart and my head. And my legs are resting and being supported by either the wall, the furniture, the chair, or just by not having to be on them right now. This is a really nice pose to restore energy to the brain and the digestive system as well, and the reproductive organs. It's a gentle inversion without getting into doing headstand or shoulder stand or some of the other more advanced inversions, with some of the same benefits. So just allow yourself to be here. Be here with your breath. Notice where your spine feels. If you're on a hard surface and you don't have a yoga mat, of course, using a blanket would be recommended, or you can also fold your mat in half if your mat is thin and doesn't feel like it's enough support for your spine. Whatever it takes to feel comfortable and supported here. Towels work as well if you don't have a mat or a blanket handy. And then we can also bring the heels together and let the knees go wide and take Suptabatakanasana, letting the feet come together at the soles, up against the wall or the support. And if not, if you don't have either, you can still do Suptabatakanasana in space. And you can allow the feet to come to the floor if that's the case, so you're not straining. So it's up to you if you want to move away from the wall now and just let the feet come down. That's an option. You want to try to keep the shoulders really tucked under so your chest stays lifting. Your chest stays lifting and open. And your shoulders are planted on the support of the floor, the mat below you. Palms are up. And then you can allow your knees to come up so your feet are on the floor again. And we'll do a supported bridge pose. So if you have a block, have that come handy. And if you don't have a block, we'll use our hands to just support the spine, bringing the feet toward the buttocks, toward the sits bones, tucking the shoulders even more underneath. We're going to lift the hips up. If you don't have a block, you can bring your hands to the backs of your thighs to support you here. As you raise your belly toward the ceiling, keep your shoulders planted down on the floor. We're not going into a full back bend. We're keeping the shoulders planted for support as the feet are supporting you and the shoulders are supporting you and the arms are supporting you. The upper arms are planted on the floor as well. And of course, the back of the head. If you have a block, you can go ahead and use the block underneath your sacrum at the highest height or at the medium height, whichever feels right to your spine, allowing your sacrum to settle onto the block. Getting a little mini back bend here. Have your big toes pointed slightly toward each other. Creates a little more space in the sacrum, base of your spine. And your chin's going to tuck toward your sternum here. So you have a bit of a sternum tuck. If you're in that supported bridge, you want to come on down. And you want to do that slowly, allowing your spine to settle one vertebrae at a time. And anyone who has the block there can remove their block and do the same, lowering the spine one vertebrae at a time until the tailbone is the very last thing to settle down onto the floor. And then we'll straighten one leg and then the other, and we'll rest in Savasana. Corpse pose, Savasana, is really a critical part of any yoga practice. Some people don't allow themselves the time to really let themselves just simply be, rest in Savasana. That's how our body integrates all that it's just done. And all the different ways that our being integrates, not just the body, but our mind, our spirit, our emotions, our intellect. Let it all integrate here by resting and letting the bones settle, letting the muscles release, and just being with the breath, being with what is for us right here, right now. Allowing the skin to soften on our face, between our eyebrows, our hands. Let everything just release and soften. Let your tongue be slack in your jaw. Let your jaw be slack in your skull. Easy mouth, easy eyes, easy heart. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, let your eyes close. If not, just have them be softly opened. If you have glasses on, you might want to remove them. And just let yourself be a few more moments in Shavasana. If you find your thoughts keep popping in, you just ask them to take a seat in the waiting room and draw your attention back to your breath or the sensations of your skin on the mat, the air on your skin, the rise and fall of your belly, your chest with each breath. And then slowly bringing awareness to your fingers and your toes, maybe wiggling them a little bit. And then allowing your neck, your head rather, to sway, move, and roll, rocking from side to side. Which word, Chris? Let's see. Just turn my head from side to side. Just slowly. And then I'm going to bend a knee, bend a knee. Allow your feet to settle on the floor and roll onto your right side and rest there for a few more breaths, letting your head be supported on your right arm. Giving yourself gratitude for showing up for practice today, for showing up for self-study. And then allow yourself to come up to whatever seated pose you'd like, when keeping your attention inward. I'm going to choose Tadasana, staff pose, straightening both legs in front of me, settling my sits bones evenly, supporting myself here with a long, straight spine. My intention still toward my heart, my hands coming together at my heart center. I invite you to join me. I'll be leading a chant. It's a Mayatri Karuna Mudita Upeksha chant that my old teacher shared with me many moons ago, and I've been sharing it with my yoga students for the past few years. I have the words and the definitions in the slides in case you do like the chant. It's basically loving kindness chant, offering compassion, non-attachment, no judgment, acceptance, and celebration for the success of others. These are some of the values, some of the meanings of these 4 words. Mayatri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. We'll be chanting it 3 times, and then we'll end with a single Om to wrap up the asana portion of the webinar. Breathing in and out. Breathing in again. Mayatri Karuna Mudita Upeksha. Mayatri Karuna Mudita Upeksha. Mayatri Karuna Mudita Upeksha. Bowing bowing our heads to our hearts, where our true self resides. Namaste. Thank you for joining me for the asana practice. I hope you enjoyed it. Alyssa, if you wouldn't mind bringing the slides back up when you're ready. Appreciate that. Thank you. I'll come in. Actually, I won't be able to work them because they're on your end. So if you could just go to the next slide. A lot of us who work in the field of victim services know that we must attend to our vicarious trauma because we experience secondary stress when we work with folks who've been through a lot of stuff. And interestingly, the ABCs of vicarious trauma care, noticing how to tend to ourselves, is really in line with yoga, really in line with asana practice especially, but yoga in general. So I think that's kind of beautiful that they line up so completely. If you can switch to the next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, we have quite a few different aspects of yoga that we can study. You can go to the next slide, please. Most importantly, I think, is to remember our birthright to our breath and to use our breath to check in with ourselves and notice how we are. When we are stressed out, sometimes we hold our breath, and even sometimes when we're not even aware that we're stressed, we may find ourselves holding our breath for no good reason. So one of the nice things about asana practice that does focus a bit on breath, not all asana practice does, but I've grown more and more inclined to include a little breath awareness in my instruction with my students, because I do find that it helps them stay present when I remind them to breathe and to notice whether their breath is slow and relaxed or not. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, needing to honor ourselves, because sometimes one day we can do these poses and the next day it might not be so simple, or vice versa. Simply because we may not have been able to do a pose doesn't mean that's the way it always will be for us. When I was in teacher training years ago, I had a lot of resistance to some of the poses I was being told I needed to learn, even though I knew I wouldn't be teaching those poses. And then I found that I was able to learn a lot by opening myself up to challenging myself to do things that I had thought they were impossible for me to do. So allowing ourselves to be where we are and also working with ourselves to open up a bit more as we practice and get stronger. Next slide, please. So I added these slides because I've been finding that the mantra that I share, the one that I just did with you, the Maya Tri Karuna Mudita Upeksha chant, has been a really appreciated by my students more and more, and they really look forward to it. So I thought I'd find some other resources that I had shared with them, and there's a link here to an article you might enjoy reading on your own. Next slide, please. One of the things that brings me a lot of joy is Kirtan practice and taking the mantra to a musical level so that people who have years of experience in leading Kirtan, there's many of them out there. Krishna Das happens to be one that I've gotten to see the most often in person. He's been really his music brings me a lot of joy, and when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with the headiness of my work, at times I will just put on some of the kirtan that Krishna Das leads. I don't have a link to his music here, but you can easily find him on YouTube, and I'm happy to also email people more if you want to contact me. My email will be offered at the end of the slides. But the one that I shared today, I promised I would share the definitions And here it is, the Mayatri Karuna Mudita Upeksha. I don't actually know a kirtan version of that, but I sing it the way I was taught it. I just really don't sing it as much as recite it. And I just think it's a really beautiful practice. It's about bringing yoga off the mat, right? It's about practicing even when we're not doing asana, but we're actually embracing the philosophy of awareness, self-awareness, consciousness, the fact that we're all one, we're all connected. And next slide, please. And so devotional yoga, bhakti yoga, in some ways that is what kirtan's about. It's about singing our devotion. And I really liked what I found on the web when I was trying to find a simple way to explain bhakti, because I'm not a deist. I'm not someone who has a personal deity. And I was raised Catholic. I'm no longer Catholic. In fact, I was just around a whole lot of family who were engaging in a funeral mass, and I was one of the few who didn't participate fully, but I was there and I was witnessed, and I felt like I participated to the extent I could. And I find that what I love about bhakti is it doesn't have to be a deity so much as the feeling of connection to other sentient beings and any life, really, the beloved, the divine being, that which makes us alive. And I just find that there's something incredibly uplifting and spiritual for me that gives me a lot of hope when I sing with the sense of bhakti devotion. So I offer this up as another resource, particularly for any of you who are drawn to music and singing. Next slide, please. And then these slides here I did include last time I offered the class, which breaks down the different limbs of yoga. And you can look at these more on your own afterwards, the yamas and niyamas. Next slide, please. Of course, asana, which we did today, is the seat of yoga. It's actually a preparation for meditation. Pranayama, as I mentioned, is a breathing practice, and there's many ways that you can, I see a question, what makes yoga trauma-informed versus standard yoga? Well, I think when you're doing yoga with an awareness that we're all in different bodies and we're all coming from our own experience, we're not making assumptions that what's working for me is working for you. And so I think when I work with my students who are all getting mental health care of some kind through the clinic that I teach through, I give them full permission to show up as they are. I'm not trying to bend them toward my will. I'm not trying to stretch them in ways that they're not ready to stretch. And I'm also honoring their limits. When we met in person, if I certainly wouldn't assist them with my hands without them asking for that type of support and giving consent to that type of hands-on support. Those are some of the ways that I consider trauma yoga to be trauma informed. I also, just in terms of acknowledging our own vulnerabilities as instructors and showing up with our authentic selves and our limitations is, in my opinion, a way of being trauma informed and modeling for survivor clients what it means to be genuine and to honor ourselves for where we are at and not project something that's not true for us. So a lot of folks might feel that they have to show up a certain way to do yoga asana. They have to look a certain way. They have to wear certain clothes. They have to be a certain level of fitness in order to show up for a yoga practice. And I would say that that's all not necessary, that anybody could begin a practice And it doesn't matter what kinds of preconceptions they had before. If they can let go of those preconceptions and simply show up with their breath and their body, they're fit enough to give asana practice a try. Yes, there is a certification in yoga, in trauma-informed yoga. They talk a lot about the neurobiological aspects of how yoga helps the brain. There's multiple books on it. I have them listed in my resources at the end of the webinar, so you can take them you can go ahead and study those books. Bessel van der Kolk, the psychiatrist at the Trauma Center in Boston, who founder of really, helped to put PTSD in the DSM-4 and then the 5, and wonderful psychiatrist who, when I met him 15, 16 years ago, he was just starting to recognize that yoga was something that exactly the body keeps the score, right? He was starting to recognize that his colleagues were all doing meditations or movement meditations or Tai Chi or yoga, and he was the only one who wasn't engaging his body in some kind of self-care. And this was right after 9/11 that I met him. And he shared some of his research that he learned from his colleagues, that he was behind the 8 ball in terms of recognizing the connection between body and mind. And he started to get involved in more embodied practices and recognized how much they helped survivors. So I was privileged enough to be amongst the people who he shared that with at a seminar that I attended in Florida. And he went on to say, like, he was really humbled by some of his colleagues, and he thought he was the boss, but they actually taught him quite a bit. And then he went on to work with yoga practitioners in later years at various places, like trying to think of the name of the place in Massachusetts. Not Karuna, that's another place where I got certified. Kripalu Yoga Center. He worked with a number of yoga instructors and really helped to validate what many survivors already knew, that yoga helped them to heal. Like myself, I'm a survivor, and yoga was one of the practices and continues to be one of the practices that keeps me grounded. I shared in the first webinar that I did on this how years ago working at Niskasa was not the way it is now, and I did not have the support of a team that I have now, and we certainly weren't doing Zooms back then either. But it was my yoga teacher training that really allowed me to build my capacity to stay in the field and continue doing work around trauma and mental health and the connection to sexual violence and healing from sexual trauma through embodied practices, including yoga, drumming, singing, a lot of other things, writing, a lot of things that move beyond talk therapy. So I can go on and on talking about that, and I'm happy to answer other questions. If we could have the next slide, please. Yep, so these are the last of the 8 limbs here. Oh, I see your comment, and I feel you very much there. I struggle. I don't want to make it sound like yoga just makes everything better, but it definitely has helped me a lot. And even knowing that I had this to look forward to today, it's been a rough week for me since there was a death in my family last week. I was a little nervous. I was like, I'm not going to have as much energy, but I'm going to really just know that my team is with me, and I'm going to show up and do my best. And it's been a joy to share this with you all today. And so thank you for your comment about, vulnerability and how doing this work is hard, doing the work that we do with people, any kind of, no matter what it is, whatever the essential workers out there. My friend's a healthcare worker. I was staying with her for the last few days, and she had to go back to work yesterday. And it was her nephew, and it was my cousin who had passed. And we were just both in a tender place, and I'm so grateful that she was able to go back to serving, families in a healthcare field. She's not doing direct victim service work, but she's working with people, and any of us working with people are dealing with stress, right? So I always say, well, if I left Niskasa, what would I do? I'd probably still be working in the same in the same realm of care for my community. So I might as well stay at Niskasa and get to work with a great team. Thank you, Jen. I so appreciate you sending me that hug. I am so thrilled to be with all of you here, and thank you, Alyssa, for moving on to the next slide. I don't know what happened to my text. It looks like it cut off there, but I trust that we'll clean that up and get that slide to you all. I'll be sending this out as a PDF following the webinar, and you can use the links that'll be provided there. So you can go and do more self-study, more self-explorations, maybe some meditations. At some point next year in 2021, I do hope to lead some meditation webinars, since I will be getting certified through the Chopra Center to be a meditation instructor. And I will be delighted to share some of that with y'all next year. I think there may be one more slide. And is getting to the last 6 minutes or so of the class. So if there are any other questions, I'm more than happy to try and answer. And here's some articles that I also had shared last time that I think you might find helpful, and also some online instructors like Adrienne, who does some really neat yoga. I would say her work is very trauma informed on YouTube, and they're free. So it's really wonderful that the internet gives us so many ways to practice now. I'm going to go into the chat to see if there's any questions I missed. And there's my email and my phone number. That's my office number. You can certainly email me, and then I'm happy to chat by phone from my home office as well. I'm not in the office since we're all working remotely these days at Niskasa. But I'm happy to have a conversation if that's easier for folks than email. And I'm going to just check to see if there are any other questions that I may have missed. I hope that you found the asana practice helpful. I know it was pretty slow, and I hope it was clear. And, that's the thing too about, oh, good, people were able to hear me. I'm glad to hear that, or see that rather. What I was going to say about the asana practice is the more consistent we are with it, the easier it gets. And even just being in another venue for the last several days, and I wasn't really able to practice. I could feel a difference yesterday when I came back and I needed to teach. I needed to really prep myself a bit more just to wake my body into those spaces again. And so even if it's just doing those cat-cow poses or whatever ones resonated for you, lifting the arms overhead in the wintertime, this always is going to warm you up. So some simple basic things to remember is when we do arms overhead, we're going to warm our body up. So for the winter months, that's great. In those hot summer days, you want to try to keep the arms down and maybe do more forward bends, bringing the head down toward the floor. That's cooling and calming. Bringing the head up and opening the chest, getting a back bend is going to be more exhilarating and uplifting and energizing. So those are some simple basic principles to remember as we go forward into the cooler weather, although go figure this weather. It was like summer to me yesterday. I felt like I could go jump in a pond when I got home, but I didn't. For those of you who are wondering, on my team, I'm a swimming addict, but I did not go jump in a lake yesterday because I had to kind of get back into the groove of work. But just like to share those basic principles. So forward bending to cool and restore and calm the nervous system, and back bending, even just mild back bending like we did earlier, for waking up and energizing and warming up the body. Forward bending to cool down. Really good idea to always do a twist in between forward bends and back bends. If you're going to do anything rigorous, you want to try to incorporate some kind of a twist, even if it's just a simple standing twist like this in between your forward and backward bends. And that's about what I've got for you all today. So thanks again, everyone. I'll stay on in case there are any last minute questions or private comments that people would like to check in with me on.